Hello, moving on to chapter 18. No ants fell in my coffee during that last chapter. They were perched on the edge looking in, but no extra protein this time. So, alrighty. This is called Three Tender Mercies. Many, many tender mercies. Many, many tender mercies. Just looking around. Winnie is up in the tree. I think so many times, and maybe it's because I live in a place where there's so many different religions going on that it's kind of a luxury that we have to choose, to look around as if we could choose from a banquet of religions, but settling into God's reality, that God has this reality out there, and within it, it functions. It's like a machine that works. When you try to pull pieces of it out, it doesn't work so well. And trying to understand how to live in that reality, but then knowing that's a choice, and a lot of people choose different things, and knowing that we have free minds to think about any paradigm we want. But even though I may not understand all the designs in his reality, it makes sense to rest in that. Thankful for that. And again, beautiful day. The birds are excited because of the rain. Okay, here we go. Three tender mercies. God of the golden dust of stars, scattered in space, God of the starry blessings that light our happy place, God of the little things, we adore thee. Come before thee, grateful and loving thanksgiving. God of the blue of glancing wing, song of the bird, God of the friendly comfort of smiles, cheer of a word, God of the little things, we adore thee. Come before thee, grateful and loving thanksgiving. God of the fairy pollen ball, frail flowery bell, touches of tenderness that would seem nothing to tell. God of the little things, we adore thee. Come before thee, grateful and loving thanksgiving. All right. Three tender mercies. We have all known the gentle solace of human love. There has been a trouble, and we have braced ourselves to live through the day without letting anyone know. And then there was just a touch of a hand, or a word, or a penciled note. Such a trifle. But that trifling thing was so unexpected, so undeserved, so brimful of what our beautiful old English calls tender mercies, that the heart melted before it, all the hurt gone. And there was a sense of something more. Lord Jesus, what was it? My child, it was I. It is I. Or were we about to enter into some cloud of tribulation, and he who goes before us turned back, as it were, to prepare us for the approaching trial? We had found it so, for example, before the passing of our friend, Walker of Tinnerly, who would have been such a stay through the years of the war. The child of this chapter was the last one with whom he had played just before he left Dohnavur to take a mission in the Telugu country where he died. She was in perfect health then, but she outran him in the quick race home, and was landing on the doorstep to welcome him when, a few days later, he was there. It was what we saw before she left us that helped us so much that we think of it as a tender mercy. Her name was Lulu. She was 5 years old, a Brahmin child of much promise. She had sickened suddenly with an illness of which we knew from the first must be dangerous. We could not ask a medical missionary to leave his hospital, a day and a half distance, for the sake of one child, but we did the best we could. We sent an urgent message to a medical evangelist trained at Niort who lived nearer, and he came at once. He arrived an hour too late. Before he came, we had seen this. It was in that chilly hour between night and morning. A lantern burned dimly in the room where Lula laid. There was nothing in that darkened room to account for what we saw. The child was in pain, struggling for breath, turning to us for what we could not give. I left her with Mabel Wade and Ponnamal, and going to a side room, cried to our father to take her quickly. I was not more than a minute away. When I returned, she was radiant. Her little lovely face was lighted with amazement and happiness. She was looking up and clapping her hands as delighted children do. When she saw me, she stretched out her arms and flung them around my neck as though saying goodbye, in a hurry to be gone. And then she turned to the others in the same eager way, and then again, holding out her arms to someone we could not see, she clapped her hands. Had only one of us seen this thing, we might have doubted, but we all three saw it. There was no trace of pain in her face. She was never to taste of pain again, and we saw nothing in the child's dear face but unimaginable delight. We looked where she was looking, almost thinking that we should see what she saw. What must be the fountain of joy be if the spray from the edge of the pool can be like that? When we turned the next bend of the road and the sorrow that waited met us there, we were comforted. Words cannot tell how tenderly by this that we had seen what we had followed the child almost to the border of the land of joy. And before the war there was another look through the unseen, for it was as though a hand drew back a corner of the curtain that hangs between our world and the other, where forces move to direct our tangled and painful affairs. There may be some who still remember the tragedy of Portugal, the great meeting led by Adeline, Duchess of Bedford, the rousing articles by Sir Arthur Gibb, the courage of the Times and the Spectator, which was then a gallant paper edited by St. Lo Strachey, and other papers, and the final victory when the prisons opened and the political prisoners were set free from their living death. Portugal. We live in India and had followed the fight. We too were working for the liberation of captives. We wondered what lay within, for there is always a spiritual secret at the land of a great battle for righteousness. And now came a letter from her who had led that fight, warrior and lover of God. Quote, I have had a beautiful confirmation of the victory of faith over the quite insuperable obstacles in the recent amnesty given to the Portuguese political prisoners. When I went out to Lisbon this time of year, there was no hope for them, speaking humanly. I went to as many as I could and told them God would open a way of escape, and one sailor boy slipped a letter into my hand, unknown to the gaolers, who were very cruel. It was a statement of his case, and the cover was addressed in Portuguese, to the care of God. He had written it in hope, and one day the cell door opened, and a stranger came in, and he took his chance. I held a public meeting in London and showed the writing and said justice would be done and they would be free. Everyone was kind and helped me, but a few believed, and so it has come at last. This is just to tell you what you know, that there is a performance of those things that are spoken of the Lord. That letter was with us through all the years of the war. Its glorious assurance succored us many a time, but even so there was a day after the war was over when we could see nothing but the vanishing pound, and now I hesitate, for this third loving kindness belongs in spirit to the last chapter, and it is so very small that I do not like to tell it at all. Set beside that noble battle is a mere anticlimax. But, after all, life is just that, a jumble of great things and little things. Exchange had done its worst. A pound sent home meant less than 10 shillings here when, for the first and last time in our history, we had not enough, we thought, for our many guests. It had, of course, always been our pleasure to care for the guest room ourselves, but now it seemed that whenever we had our own should be kept for the children, and with grief and burning of heart, we forced ourselves to put a card in the guest room saying what the day's food cost. The card had not been there long when Dr. Inwood came from England and stayed with us. We could not bear that such a card should be his welcome, so we took it away and filled the room with roses. They should be his welcome. We told him nothing. Like others, he thought that someone or something was behind us. But one day, as he stood under the big tamarind tree near the school and watched the children swarming in and out, he said suddenly, His compassions fail not, they are new every morning, and that means this. And he put his hand into his pocket and drew out a bundle of notes. Never shall I forget the inrush of the sense of love of our Father that flooded my heart then, or the sudden sweetness after the misery of writing that wretched little card. The rebuke was so gentle that it seemed a caress. It was the very comfort of God. We never told Dr. Inwood about the card, but we did tell him about the provision of the years, and he asked us to share it with others. And so, nor script, came to be written, and 2 years later, Tables in the Wilderness, and after 6 more years, Meal in a Barrel. That minute by Lula's cot, when we saw the bright reflection of unseen things, that letter telling of the hidden work of the powers of the world to come, and this drink of the love of our Lord, how can we tell what they were to us? We cannot tell it, but this we know. He who has felt the face of beauty, which wakes the world's great hymn, for one unutterable moment, bent in love or hymn, in that look finds earth, heaven, men, and angels grow nearer through him. In that look, such a thing as the card over which we had grieved so foolishly became unthinkable. Earth, heaven, men, and angels were nearer now. The card was torn up and, with a great sigh of relief, dropped into the wastepaper basket, and never again has anything like that been done anywhere within the borders of our fellowship. Yes, we thank God. He's provided for us and for so many people. It's a huge gift, and I love reading your stories of provision. People have come to you, been with you, walk with each other, meeting the needs that you have, and your kids, my kids, and the kids of our team, and the kids of our team in Burma. So, faithfulness. I think I sent that to you, a bunch of scriptures on faithfulness. Because it's easy to forget. It's easy to forget. So, faithfulness. Morning by morning, new mercies we see. So, thank you, and have a great day for night sleep. Because I think you listen to these at night. But anyway, okay, love you.